Guy channel, the Car Guy channel. My name is Mike Hennessy. This show is all about cars and all four car guys. Get yourself a cold beer. Get yourself a cold beer, guys, because our show is... We are smoking! I'm Mike Hennessy, and you're watching the Car Guy channel. I have an auto repair shop. I've been in the business for over 30 years. You name it, we got it, we built it, we've done it, we do it. We love this car stuff, and I hope you guys do too. We're gonna have a lot of fun, got a lot of stuff cooking, so just stay tuned. Welcome to the Car Guy channel. We got a fantastic show. We got a lot of cool stuff to show you. Hey, we're gonna bring you up to speed on a lot of projects we're doing and a lot of restorations. I used to say restorations are pretty much like a sport. You know, when you do a restoration, it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. It's not a race. If you kind of work on your cars and think of them that way, you're gonna pretty much get them done. Have a little bit of patience, and they do get done. They take a long time to do. A shop small as ours, we kind of squeeze a lot of stuff in to get it taken care of. But we got a lot of really cool cars. Picked up a really cool 1935 Ford. Can't wait to show it to you. Happens to be behind here. We're going to take it for a run, we're taking it for a drive, and show you all about the car. Sit down, get yourself a cold one, and watch the show. I'm going to go ahead and try to bring you guys and gals up to speed on this 1956 Chevrolet Nomad project car we're doing. It's pretty much a full restoration. A lot of work went into this car. You've probably seen some of the episodes with the rust in the panels and all the work that we've been putting into the body. We finally actually married the body back to the frame. And the frame you probably haven't seen much of except for some of the early episodes, but just to bring you up to speed on them, we have these tubular lower A-arms, tubular lower upper A-arms, and these right here has bronze bushings inside, the cadmium nuts and bolts. These are really built well. We got these from a company called Dan Chuck, and they're not a sponsor to the show. It's had to be a good source to do it. And we put the disc brakes on the front, which you can see with the calipers in there, and right here with all the correct steering, updated steering box. And I'm telling you, this is going to be absolutely fantastic on both sides. So we went ahead and finished the whole frame. We got the whole frame, all of it done in POR 15 paint. Came out nice. It's good and sturdy, good and strong, and we were able to go ahead and set the body back on the frame. The big deal about getting the body back on the frame, and it has a little bit of a rough look like you see it now, is because now it's time to fit the car. When we say fit the car, we want to make sure the doors open properly. We want to make sure the fenders go on properly and the way they're done. And so that's why we're going to go ahead and show you some of the motor mounts that's actually put into the car, excuse me, the frame mounts put into the car. These frame mounts go right to the body, and they're double bumpered, like a bumper here and a bumper on top, and that's what adjoins the body to the frame itself. So you've never seen a body off the frame. This is kind of how it's done. And you're going to go ahead and have 6 of these on the sides of the car, on both sides, and that's how this comes together and keeps this car here sturdy. Back in the 50s, these cars were very, very well-built cars. You get an accident with one of these cars here, they really held up fine. The metal was thicker, the car was heavier. It's just the seat belts weren't that good. The windshields didn't pop out, didn't have airbags. But I'll tell you this, they were a pretty sturdy car. When you go ahead and work on one of these that's had damage or accidents before, they're kind of fixable, because you take the body off the frame, you can do and create a lot of stuff, just like some rust repairs. Now, we did a lot of this work obviously before we put the body back onto the frame, and there's some things you got to do way ahead of time. So you guys and gals are doing a project at home, think ahead of time, try to do that. It really makes a lot of sense when you're building a car, especially like this. This is a resto mod. This car's resto mod. It's going to kind of look at the appearance of the 56 Nomad, but there's going to be some changes. The colors will be tickled a little bit with a little bit more flavor to the colors, and the frame and the performance of the car. Now, I'm going to show you something here that's really kind of an interesting way of going about it, and I think it turned out really nice. We went ahead and notched the frame. When I'm saying notch the frame, kind of follow my finger. This right here is how thick the frame is, and then it comes all the way up here. We cut it. Cut the frame all the way up into the top and down here, and then we laid a piece of steel strap inside here. Now, this right here is to secure and pretty much strengthen the frame in this area. And then, of course, some people say, why are you doing that, Mike? Well, this right here brings the leaf spring further into the center of the car. Normally, this leaf spring here mounts all the way on the outside of the frame and mounts out here, and then does what it needs to do. And this right here is where the leaf spring, this unit here, used to sit right inside this particular pocket to set the rear end, sit right on top of the leaf spring like we did. We moved it over, really, pretty much about a good 4.5 inches. Now, obviously, to move the leaf spring from here to here, a little over 4.5 inches, and notch the back of the frame so the frame can go ahead and still have the shackles to make that swivel back and forth like it needs to, you got to do the front part also. And that's where the work comes in. This right here is a kit that you can go ahead and buy. And if I can weasel my fingers and hands in there, you can see this whole pocket. We actually cut the whole inside of the frame and set this pocket inside there and welded it all the way around to make sure that it's totally strong. And actually, the frame's a lot more rigid and a little bit stronger because of this particular change. Now, we go through all these things and moving the leaf spring and blah, 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 but here's where it comes in at. I can now put a set of wider tires on this car. I can bring these tires all the way to right about my finger is, so I can get what you call some inboard rims. I can get a little more meat on the ground, a little fatter tire in the back of this car, make it handle better, drive better, and road better. And I'm telling you, it's really the way to go. So if you guys ever think about notching your frames, check into it. Give us a call down here at the shop. Give you some pointers and ideas on how to do it. Or heck, we could do it for you. But this is what needs to be done. They have this kit for all Tri-5 Chevys, all from 1955 to 1957. It's a great kit to do. Moves the leaf springs over, gives it a better ride, get bigger tires. And of course, us car guys, we always like things bigger and better. And again, up here, you can go ahead and still can go ahead and get these shots. Here's some of the more of the body and the frame mounts that actually bolt this together. The old ones are just completely deteriorated, rotted out. And there's some of you guys are restoring your cars. You're doing a cosmetic restoration, means you're not pulling it from the frame. You can lift the car up different sections at a time and put a set of brand new mounts in there. It makes a difference, makes the ride quieter. There's a lot to be done. They're not that expensive. It's the right way to go. And you can see we got a couple in here. Boom, boom. Couple in the back. That's what makes this thing here a restoration and makes it a good restoration. This right here is more of a softer, more of a flatter, or a non-glossier black paint. That's what we chose to do on the bottom of the car. Money-wise, was the best thing and smartest thing to do is keep this right here a different color black, which would be kind of a matte finish, easier to put on and put it on. And I'm going to cover this part here. And the reason why is it is very, very important. So we went ahead and we're painting the car black and silver. The whole base of the car is going to be in black. And of course, in between the spear is going to be silver. Now, we'll go over that in another episode when we get to that part, but just give you the reason why we're doing this right here in the black. The firewall needs to be painted the same color as the car. So we had to go ahead and spray this with the black paint that we're going to do. And then we will clear coat it. So we'll show you a couple shots of Raoul getting the paint on this and going to the front of the car. So now we can install the fenders. When we put this onto the frame, when we made it and put it together, we need to make sure the car has fit. So we're going to be putting the fenders on, but why put the fenders on when we haven't painted the back of this black yet? So this is very important. Get this done. We put the fenders on the car, get our fit going on the car. We'll put our core support in and the fenders. You'll see the cars going together. Get these fenders on the car, and then we'll be able to see how the doors open and close real well, and that's what we mean by getting the car to fit. This is one of our projects going on, and I hope you like looking at it. We always have projects going on here at the time of the shop, but I'm going to go ahead and explain a little bit about what we're doing here. This is a 1966 Chevrolet Corvette convertible. Now, they're out there, they're desirable cars, and I'm telling you something about this car here, what makes this car here very, very desirable. And you can see right now we have a big block. This car came to us all in parts. You're seeing this thing here completely. Engine was just sat inside here. Someone did some rebuild, and the shop never did finish none of the work to it. But it happens to be a 427 engine. But it's not the exact 66 427. Now, this is a factory big block car. Now, here's the neat thing about it. Being a factory big block car, this has factory air conditioning. I'm telling you, that is about as rare as hen's teeth. They did not have very many little air-conditioned cars, but a big block air-conditioned car, 390 horsepower. All 390 horsepower cars all came in 1966 with a cast iron intake manifold. So, of course, there's a lot of things we're trying to do to make it look correct as possible, but this motor happens to be a 68 427 engine, but he's trying to get it close as he possibly can. The cars turn out just spectacular. That'll give you just a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of a taste of some of the things we get him in and how they got him in, to scatter the parts, unscatter the parts, I should say, as they came in, move them all the way around, get the heads done, go through the block because it's sitting for a long time. And my good buddy Wayne, this car right here is going to probably go back to, I think we're sending this car to Thailand, and that's really where we decided to go ahead and live in Thailand. That's where we're moving the car to. We want to get the car runnable, drivable, and kind of really be a neat piece. I think it'd be the only 427 390 horse air-conditioned Corvette Roadster in Thailand. So it'd be kind of a neat piece to do. I like Estelle to go over this car here with a camera, just give you some sort of idea of the projects, the way they come in, and then, of course, we're going to show you when this project leaves the shop. but you guys know what you're doing. That's kind of a neat feature, really.
We try and help the other guys that don't know as much about what's going on, kind of help them to learn more about it, and that's what it's all about. It's learning.
What do you say when a guy says, no, I was at so-and-so Auto Parts, and the idiot didn't know his butt from first base, and, you know, and then he comes over here, and I guess that's kind of what your guys' claim to fame, though, really, isn't it?
Somewhat, yeah. We, you know, they just haven't worked here, so they don't know.
Well, you guys are finally tapping into the speed market. They're tapping into the custom market, right?
Yeah.
Like all the stuff you guys, you got gauges, you got stuff, you got, I mean, you're tapped. I know it's a little bit of everything, electric water pumps. So since you're kind of in the hot rod theme, so I noticed you're handling some flathead stuff.
Yeah, we got a few little things. We got some heads, we got an intake.
How did you talk them into flathead stuff?
Well, you know, it's been tough. It's been about 8 years coming, so.
So I had a feeling that you had a little something to do with the flathead stuff.
Just a bit. Trying to get some of that stuff, just to let people know what we can get. I mean, if we have a variety, somebody might, you know, say, hey, you guys stock flathead stuff. How about something for a nailhead, or, you know, whatever, you know.
How many customers really like my shop are out there? My shop we build street rod stuff, the custom stuff we build. How many guys out there are like me?
You know, not too many. They're getting less and less every day.
You're trying to say we're kind of dinosauric, huh?
Yeah, kind of. But I'm trying to bring it back. We're trying to bring it back.
Cool. Hey, we're going to do that. Hey, let's get the rest of the store, guys. Rock and roll. Cool. Hey, thanks, buddy.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We gonna rock.
There's a lot of reasons why I chose this car right here to be Car of the Week. 1935 Ford, 5-window, 2-door coupe. I'm telling you, these cars right here, they're just class. They're spectacular. I think they say it all themselves. I can't go into enough to say how much I think they're just fantastic, the whole look. And this right here is what the 30s was all about. Now, the 30s were changing really quite a bit for Ford. But when a person gets a car like this, I'm telling you, they love them. It's like part of the family. And I got this car from a very, very good friend of mine named Mike. Now, Mike's a singer. He sings for the Hot San Jose Knights. He's one of the anthem singers. And Mike is a good guy and a great person. He loves, and I mean loves cars. Mike don't get nothing unless it is the best. That's just his style, and I admire his style really quite a bit. Now, these V8 motors in the earlier years had their problems. So late 32, 33, that's when the V8 hit the market. People loved them. And in 1934, there was a guy named Dillinger that sent Henry Ford a letter saying how much he likes the Ford V8. Now, if that right there is a recommendation on how well the motor ran, that's just one way of looking at it. But a Dillinger really liked the way that motor ran. But these motors here had 90 horsepower. That really wasn't a lot. The earlier cars were a little bit lower, 221 cubic inch on the V8s. But this right here is what class was all about. And the V8, after a couple of years, really put Ford on the map for a lot of things. I always get a kick out of our inflation and everything about life. When this car here sold brand new, this car right here was $650. That's fully optioned out, and that means with a radio. And we'll go into that in a little bit. But look at the grill on this. 1935 is pretty much its own style of grill. They were very, very elongated on it. 34, of course, if you know a 34 Ford, it's a little shorter. It's a little bit different and has a little bit of a different look. 35, it's its own look. 36 made some changes also. So 35 is kind of one of those cars. It's kind of one only with a lot of interesting pieces on it. Look at the front bumper arm, all chrome plated. Now these right here are add-on, but they're add-on options. And by the way, these options could have been bought at the Ford dealer. And of course, this car has running lights, exterior horns. Now these lights right here are not the original 35 lights at all, but these right here are kind of a pretty big deal. They went to stainless steel in these years in the 30s because it was pretty hard to get Henry Ford away from the actual polished nickel and some of the other cars for grills and other pieces on the car. But look at the front end of this. If this isn't class, I don't know what it really is. License plates are always on the side, and you can tell it does have the vintage 1935 license plate. And I'm telling you, little touches like that you add on to these cars really make it spectacular. Some of the real early Ford buffs, Flathead buffs, they kind of know all about this type of stuff. And being a 90 horsepower V8 engine, they came with a very, very small, I feel very small, 2-barrel carburetor, and they were called Stombergs. Stomberg 97 was most of the nickname for them. But this Stomberg 97 carburetor, simple air cleaner, and they did come with a generator. Now this car right here, we actually converted this generator here over to an alternator, but alternator for 6 volts. From 1928 to 1954, all cars in Ford industry and Lincoln were in positive ground. That means the positive end of the battery cable went to the frame of the car, not the negative like we're used to. They did that changeover originally when most cars went to 12 volts. 12 volt was kind of the change. Now, Chevrolet had negative ground, Cadillacs, and some Cadillacs were for positive ground, but not all of them. But you need to look into that to find out when you're doing your restoration or installing a battery in your car, especially bringing something out of the archives or doing a garage find, and you want to go ahead and pull out a pretty cool car, and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing by hooking it up. Now, these things do happen to the older cars. It's not going to kill it, not going to hurt it. Some cars, it does some damage. You can catch the problem pretty quickly, but not to run in the ground. They are positive ground on all these particular cars, and it really makes a big difference when you're working on them. But here, right here, is 90 horsepower of Ford Flathead, and it's called the 21 bolt head. You count the head bolts on them. Most of these car buffs that really know the Flatheads know the difference between the bolt patterns on the heads of which of the 21 bolt heads or the later ones in their years. Take a look underneath the hood of this car. You're going to see the way there's dual water pump on each side of the cylinder head, and take a look at that. It shows up pretty cool. Now, if you notice, this looks kind of an odd configuration to most people that are working on cars, motor heads, and whatnot. But the distributor on a flathead V8 Ford, the distributor is in the very, very front. It's on the front of the camshaft. Camshaft runs this direction here, front of the cam. That's where the distributor is, and that's where the wire looms come in to hit all the spark plugs. It's a tight fit. They remove the fan sometimes to get in there and go to the points, but that's how it was done. This car being a two-tone car, I think looks spectacular. And you kind of do them any way you really want. This right here is pretty much period correct. You know, when you actually have the chestnut brown on the fenders, and you go ahead and have the doe skin style tan on here. But when the restoration on this car was done, obviously all the pieces were off the car, and it looks beautiful underneath. This whole firewall was all completely repainted. You can see all the cadmium bolts that hold all the items in there. And I always say it on the show all the time. Don't want to bore you with it, but I love the attention to detail. That shows a lot about the car, the quality and the builder and how this car was put together. So the firewall makes it really kind of nice. And this right here is the nice welting that goes for the hood to keep away some of the vibration. This is an older restoration. I'd probably say about maybe 15 years, but it was kept up really good. Used for parades, used for being original, going to car shows. And there's an item that we put in this car I thought was a pretty big plus. We put an electric fan in front of the radiator. Remember, all these cars are originally designed for leaded fuel. That meant the car ran a little bit cooler. Unleaded fuel burns a lot hotter. And of course, these cars had some overheating problems of their own in the earlier years. They were pretty much cured all the way to 1934. So a 35 car, you got a pretty solid engine block. But I still went ahead and I put an electric fan in the front of the radiator, so when you go to parades or in a rally, that air will draw right through the radiator here and keep this car here much cooler. The cooler you can keep it, the better it runs, longer it lives, and you enjoy the car a lot longer. You probably see this option on a lot of older vintage cars, and they have a great look to them, the spotlight. And remember the old days, I don't know if everybody can remember this, but going to the drive-in movie, and they had the things going on, and the object was to use the spotlight to hit the character, hit the item on the board with the light on the screen. It was kind of comical, kind of fun. That wasn't what they were meant for, but addresses and whatnot, it was just an auxiliary light, and a lot of cars had them, and it was very important. I didn't know too many people that did not want one on a car. Great option to put on the car. The mirrors are kind of on the side. They're pretty small. There's not a lot of frills. If you noticed under the hood, we just had a 90 horsepower flathead V8 with an air cleaner. There's no power steering, no power brakes. You know, the taste in doing these with the colors, I just think it's just so period correct. It's really kind of neat. This right here is kind of a real deep, almost like a brownish burgundy tint color around the door frames and the dash. But this car here was all restored with the correct mohair style material that is on the door panels, and the same on the bottom of the kick panel is really for the carpets, for the floor of the car. See where the handles are? They're all the correct stuff. These are all original pieces, and these right here have the white ivory style knobs on them, which I think is just beautiful. And you go inside the car, you can see the same color as the burgundy. And if you're going to notice on the turn signals, they didn't have turn signal switches back in 1935. We added some of the safety features on that we thought made a pretty big deal with the car. And you can take a look at the turn signal switch. It's kind of neat. Let's take you inside and show you some more stuff. But this car has an option that we went ahead and we actually found the radio and bought it. Mike and myself kind of teamed up. Mike's a pretty good researcher. He went through all the vintage Ford places and warehouses to whatnot. He ran into a guy that had an original 1935 Ford factory radio. These are about as rare as hen's teeth, and the whole apparatus is all bolted underneath the bottom of it, and it turned out great. And these were the only two knobs how to get the radio into place. So it's pretty neat to see an original radio put in one of these. So whoever gets this car someday will probably really enjoy having items like that inside the car. This is kind of a neat device they put in. They started them in the 30s, really. This right here is the on and off switch to start the car. Now, if you want to lock it, you turn this key here. This little pin comes in, locks it. Take out your key, and that's how you locked your car. If you notice, this car doesn't have door locks, so that's how you get into the car like that. But there's other ways to steal one, but I'm just saying that's what they did, and they thought that worked pretty good. So you turn the switch on, and you go over to this side here, and there's a little button that says start. You hit the button, car fires up, put it in gear, and you're on your way. There's kind of a little invention, a little feature option that we went ahead and put in this car. Check out this seat. See what it does. This right here is a businessman's coupe, so there's no back seat to the car, but there's a lot of places to put items, luggage and whatnot, and it's pretty much easy. You can put toward the back or slide it, like when we lift up the seat back, we put some hinges on there, a special holder, so it's nice and safe. It's kind of a little neat of a clever idea. Doesn't really change or hurt anything, especially for points when you're going to a car show. But I wanted the car to get the car pinstriped, and Mike had a real good idea at the time. He wanted to match the pinstriping to match the wheels. So we had a special striper come by the shop and go ahead and stripe this car all the way around. Now, it takes at least 3 to 4 hours to do it properly. Any good pinstriper, ask him, is he taking off more paint than he's ever put on? Then you hire him. That's what this right here was done. Our guy's Rory. He does a great job. Pinstriped all the way around on the car. Kind of gave it that look. So now you kind of got about 3 colors. You know, you have the nutmeg, you have the doeskin tan on it, and how it's broken up here. These are pretty classy. And a lot of automotive manufacturers really didn't produce the cars off the assembly line like this. A lot of the dealers did this to enhance the sales of their cars, is what came about. So it's a pretty neat piece. Shows a lot of class. I think it's kind of neat. Check it out. And of course, a feature that everybody talks about through all the years of all the vintage and classic cars really are the rumble seat. Now, this car here happens to have a rumble seat. This is one of the few of the last years of a rumble seat in the car. They're kind of neat to have. You turn the handle on them, you pull them up, and you open them. People can ride back there. It's kind of cozy for 2. It's kind of pretty neat to have. Get in there, and this is where the area is. You can go ahead, like I said, if you had luggage or any longer pieces in there. And originally, a pair of golf clubs, believe it or not, a pair of golf clubs, I've tried it, will stick right inside here and go almost to where underneath where the seat is. You have a little bit of room in there, and it's kind of good hidden room, and I always thought it was a pretty neat spot to use some space that was never utilized. But I'm going to go ahead and show you something here that you all have seen it, and you might not have all have done it. I'm not going to do it on the show, but this right here is a footpad. And you step into here, step there, and that's how you get in and out of a rumble seat car. Again, 1935 was toward the end of the years of rumble seats, so it had some really neat history. 35 had a lot to do and a lot to say about the industry of cars. Now, these right here are the factory Ford wire wheels. So these are all metal. These wires are all welded together in the factory. They're very, very neat wheels. Not all of them to get them true, there's no adjustments to get them true except for the hydraulic press. And you can set them up that way if you really need to, but they still were a solid wheel. They worked pretty well. What I mean by solid, I mean solid in operation. Believe it or not, a spare tire was a huge deal to have on cars in the early years. Actually, I would say a spare tire was really huge before radial tires. Even cars that had radial tires still had spare tires going on. In the early years, some cars had what you called dual side mounts. There'd be a tire on this side, a tire on that side. That's kind of a classy thing to have that was mounted on the fender. Some European cars went ahead and had 2 tires, dual tires, actually mounted on the back with a big wing nut that took them off. But they were actually used. Having a jack and a spare tire is something was a necessity back in the time when the roads weren't really that well. Tires were made about as good as they can make them back then. But again, you want to keep your tire because it's your tire. And unfortunately, we have some people in this world that think they want to take things that don't own to them. But they did want to come up with a lock assembly to put on this cap. This right here was an option to buy. This did not come with the car. But you had to go ahead and buy this separately at the Ford store. There's a lock assembly goes inside here. Turn the key, lift this here up, takes off the bolts. You can get this cap off to unbolt that wheel to go ahead and change your flat. So some creep out there steals your spare tire. That's a bad sign. On the back of the car, we actually had another license plate on the right side that had pretty much a telltale sign about being a 1935 Ford and other things too, a little significance on it. We left this on there just because we'll probably put something else on there that's promotional. And we put the license plate on the left rear. These right here do have the little famous dot in the center. At one time, they were illegal to put on cars, and now every car has them in the vintage world. And if you do see on the bottom of the car, this right here is single exhaust. Dual exhaust really was not really thought much of it. And if you think dual exhaust could give the car just a little bit more horsepower, but they really were not into having cars being noisy. So any noise in a car did not show any class with the car. They wanted to get these cars about as quiet as they possibly could. And some of the car shows have been going on. You get a guy with a certain model car and the motor's sitting there running and the judge doesn't hear it running. That's one heck of a car. I hope you enjoyed the car of the week, a 1935 Ford 5-window business coupe. Could be a 5-window coupe, however you look at it, they're cool no matter what. Any of these cars are spectacular, and I don't need to go over all this stuff again, but a car like this, when you think about it, for $650, brand new off the showroom floor, just shows our inflation. When is that number ever going to drop off? It just wants to keep go, 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 go. I have no idea. But when you look back at this, when people were paid to work on them and build them, they still raised families and still did life. So the way changes are in life, it is a piece of history. And the owner of 1935 Ford, I'm proud to be part of it. And thanks, Mike, for working the deal with me on the car. And I think it's spectacular to own it. I think it's really, really cool. And Mike, your new project we're going to have on the show, because I know your bucket list filled something in the 40s, and I just really can't wait to see it. So I heard you bought it. Watch the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing the car. But ladies and gentlemen, check out this 1935 Ford. I think you'd be pretty impressed.
Why do fools fall in love? Why do birds sing so gay? Lovers await the break of day. Why do they fall in love?
Now here's something I have been dying to show you is the 1967 427 435 horse Corvette. This car right here is the Holy Grail. You've probably seen a lot of episodes of us having this car, doing the body work, bringing the paint back down, bringing the paint back up. Fiberglass cars today are very difficult to do, and they take a lot of work and a lot of effort. It's hard to make them exactly perfect, and it frustrates me because I really do like them to look perfect as I can. The other thing is probably, you know, one of my very best friends in the world that the car's going to, and he's probably one of the greatest guys that it kind of makes my day just talking to him because he's just really into the hobby, and then he's a real guy. Good family man. But he came up with the colors that he wanted to have on the very center. We did all the stuff. You cannot even feel the lines on the hood of this car. Done correctly. We did NCR specs on the hood spear. And it came out neat. I'm hoping the camera can show the luster, show the depth in this car. We actually buffed this car with all 3 stages of the correct buffing stuff. So when this car gets wax on it, this car here will be absolutely, and I mean spectacular. So I want you to see this car after the paint's laid on here, the car's color sand, the car's buffed. We start getting the glass in the car. The red line wheels are coming in, and they should look pretty spectacular by next week. But just to show you some of the projects that we're finishing up, it's pretty neat to see them. Wow, what a lot of work and a lot of stuff to see. These projects been going on for quite a while, and it's sure neat to show you guys and gals one that's actually coming to the close and coming to the finish. And seeing some of these pretty cool cars out there. Hey, you're doing this hobby and you seem to enjoy what you're doing. If you're watching my show, you're catching a lot of pretty cool ideas and you get involved with all sorts of things. Hey, I do read all the emails, I return all the questions, and I try to do my very best we can. We get quite a bit in per day, and it's nice to get them all. Don't be afraid. Send me pictures of your car, show me what you got, and maybe next time we'll get your car on the Car Guy channel. Hey, God bless you, and we'll see you next week.